You're feeling disconnected from your own life, not necessarily depressed or numb, disconnected. You're present for a job, you're going through the routines and holding conversations, but none of it registers as yours. This could be an identity disconnection, a documented response to losing a role you built your sense of self around. Not a mental collapse. It's a structural shift. The frame your identity off is gone. Everything that was built on top of it's still standing there, but it's all slightly off. It feels like being an observer in your own life, watching from the sidelines rather than living it. You still function. You can still work. You can still show up. You can still get through one day and hold conversations without anyone noticing anything's wrong. But nothing's really registering the way it used to. There's no real interest in anything that used to excite you. No sense that any of it's actually yours. You can describe your own day back to someone accurately and still feel like you're reading someone else's diary. It often shows up after roles being stripped away. A divorce, a redundancy in a job that you told yourself you were there for years. Gone in one afternoon, a career-ending injury that you built your life around. Retirement, when everyone told you it would feel like freedom and it feels more like a sentence. Research on post-lost identity disruption has found that the same pattern holds across various life events. Death, divorce, and job loss alike. The type of loss may be different, but the identity collapse underneath it all is anything but. The situation may open a different door, but once through, it's all the same room. The instinct is to wait it out, stay busy, get back to normal, and let time do the work. Increase productivity, get dating, do more exercise, work longer hours, anything that looks like progress, because progress is measurable and disconnection isn't. But months later, the disconnection is still there, you're just busier. The calendar's fuller, the to-do list is shorter. But that low hum underneath it all hasn't moved. That's the catch. That's what blindsides everyone. Effort was never the missing ingredient. You can push harder at a job, a body, throw yourself into the dating scene, but none of it will ever deal with the underlying issue, what caused the structural shift. Willpower doesn't fix this, and it's worth being specific about why. Willpower assumes that the self doing the pushing is intact, that there's a stable you behind the effort directing it. That's exactly what's not true here. The whole foundation that self-will was built on's gone. You're not short on discipline. You're missing the structure that the discipline was supposed to be organised around. Time doesn't fix this either, well, at least not on its own. Men 5 years on report the same feelings of disconnection as men report 5 weeks out from the event, but now they're older, they're busier, they're further from the events on the calendar and no nearer to resolving it. Time changes the dates, but it doesn't rebuild anything by default. And trying to think yourself consciously through this will never work. Spinning it round and round, looking at it from every angle, twisting your brain into a pretzel, trying to find some sort of logical way through it, that's not going to give any insight, even though it feels like work. You can't out-logic something that was never a logic problem in the first place. You can understand the mechanisms completely and still be standing in the centre of it all. Identity gets built around a role. Husband, provider, employee, whatever that specific label was. Not something you did on the side. The frame, everything else hung off. Your routines, your sense of purpose, even your nervous system calibrated over years to read that role as safety. As baseline, as simply how things are. If that role gets stripped away, the frame goes with it. Not gradually, and in most cases, usually all at once or close enough to it that the difference doesn't matter. The function stays intact. You can still work, parent, show up, but feeling like yourself doesn't survive the same way. Because the self you're trying to locate was never separate from the role, it was built on it. The way that a house is built on a foundation rather than sitting next to one. The identity structure lost its load-bearing wall, and everything that was built on top of it, the habits, confidence, your read on your own reactions, is still standing there, still technically functioning, still slightly off in a way that's hard to name because there's nothing visibly broken. It doesn't have to be permanent though. The structure can be rebuilt. But it's also not something that resolves on its own just because enough time's passed. Because at the moment there's nothing currently doing a rebuilding. And that gap stays open until something closes it. Left unnamed, this doesn't stay static, it gets built around. A new job goes on top of it, a new relationship, a new routine, a new gym membership, a new place to live. Each one holds out for a while because you're capable, and pushing through is the skill you've relied on your whole life to get through hard things. But the frame underneath it all is still missing, and nothing you're laying on top of that gap is actually closing it. 5 years on, 10 years on, that disconnection hasn't resolved. What's happened instead is you've forgotten it as a baseline. You've stopped noticing it in a way that you stop noticing a low hum in a room that you've spent enough time in. That's not healing. That's numbness with better production values. A life that looks assembled from the outside, running on a structure that was never actually rebuilt. Those closest to you, they notice it before you're willing to name it yourself. They notice it in the flatness of how you talk about things that used to matter. The things that you've quietly stopped reaching for. Plans, interests, ambitions that used to be obviously yours and now just aren't mentioned anymore. They don't have a name for what they're seeing either, so they don't confront it, they just adjust. They quietly recalibrate what they expect from you now, downwards without ever announcing it. And once people have lowered what they expect from you, that's difficult to reverse. Even once the actual rebuild happens, you can fix the structure and still be dealing with the recalibration for a long time after, because trust in someone's capacity doesn't rebound as fast as the person did. Resolution doesn't come from waiting it out, gritting through it, or reading enough about it to understand the mechanism intellectually. Understanding the mechanism on its own changes nothing about the structure. It comes from rebuilding the identity itself directly, at the level where the disconnection actually lives. Not a new job title laid over the gap, not a new relationship asked to do the structural work an entire identity used to do. The actual foundation worked on directly, underneath the thinking, underneath the willpower, at the level where the original structure was built in the first place. That's not a slow process by default. It's slow when nothing is being done about it directly, and it moves considerably faster once it is. There's two options here. You can keep adapting around a foundation that isn't there and call it coping, building new things on top of a gap that's still open for as many years as it takes for that to stop feeling temporary and start feeling permanent. Or rebuild the actual structure and stop managing the disconnection as a fact of life. One of those is a life sentence dressed up as resilience. The other is freedom.